Okay, we're going to get started. My name is Michael Asimor. I'll be presenting today. It says on the screen June 23 course, but it's July, I promise. I made some new additions because every month I will add new content based on what I'm seeing in the marketplace. Very excited to have you all here. First, a little bit of housekeeping. I take questions at the end of the presentation. We will have time left over at the end. If you have a question, as soon as you think about it, leverage that chat icon that you'll see at the bottom of your Zoom screen and type in your message. You also have the option to raise your hand if you'd like as well. That's typically found also at the bottom of the page as well. Either way, happy to answer all questions at the end. I don't give out my slides. However, I will make this available on our website as well as on our YouTube channel. So all you have to do is register for that too. And excited to present. So why don't we get started here? And what we're going to cover today when it comes to grants is, what do you want? Why do you want it, how you can achieve it, and then a call to action. And so when it comes to grant mastery and really understanding how to play this grant game, today I'm going to be talking to two sets of audiences, I guess you could say. End users, the ones that need to get the grant money to purchase the equipment, software, and training. And then businesses, the ones that sell the equipment, software, and training to the end users. There's a lot of commonality between both of you, and I'll be talking to both of you throughout the day. And then there's going to be times where I'm going to be talking to just one part of the audience. So what do you want? When you're a public safety agency, there's really three things you want: to add more value to your community, consistent funding for solutions that serve your community. Most public safety agencies, 90 to 98% of that budget goes to payroll or gasoline. So there's not a lot of money left over. And to solve problems that are currently happening in your community. Now, if you're a business, what you want is to add more value to the public safety market than ever before. You have a solution that you believe in, that you believe is going to solve problems and enhance the communities that have these problems. As a business, you obviously want to have more sales leads from your marketing campaigns, a more accurate sales pipeline so you know when opportunities are going to close, and in general, more sales. And so we're going to be talking about how grants play a role in all of this, and how leveraging grants and understanding how to play that grant game is going to add the value that both the agencies and the businesses want. So really, why? Why do you want this? So when you're an agency, I mentioned earlier, 90 to 98% of budgets go to payroll and gasoline. That's usually the biggest problem I hear that public safety agencies have when it comes to wanting to have solutions that better serve their community. I also have seen a trend over the last 10 years now. More and more projects have to get approved by elected officials, may it be a city or a county. They want to say in an understanding of what you want and why you want it. So now, as an end user, you not only have to find a solution, but you have to figure out a way to sell it. When you're a business in this market, the problems you're experiencing is a long sales process. The purchasing sales process currently in our market averages 6 months to 2 years. And that's for a project that costs 4 figures or more. So we're only talking about $1,000 projects here. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, $1 million projects, those take more closer to that 2-year time frame than that 6 months. We've also been tracking the amount of interaction the elected officials want. I mentioned earlier, they want to say more and more on what public safety agencies acquire. One of the things they do is they vote a lot. they will vote on a project anywhere from 5 to 7 times before approving a purchase. So in addition to the long sales process, there's a real need for meaningful and productive conversations within the marketplace. So I created a formula a few years ago for a client of mine, and the formula reads end users plus needs minus funding equals less conversations. So what does that mean? In this marketplace, end users have a lot of needs. You know, when I was in sales selling to the SWAT market for law enforcement, I would get a list of up to 30 items sometimes, and I would price them all out and I'd send it out to the end users. And then I would find out weeks later that they got approved, but they only got approved for 2 out of the 30 items. And as I've been in this industry longer, I'm now going into my 22nd year of being in this industry. I would hallucinate that not only does special operations have that issue, but patrol, training, IT, investigative, battalions, traffic, administrative, support services, and I can go on and on and on. It is a difficult thing to get items approved when the budget's so thin. So a lot of times end users I've found would look at products either through publications, online media, at trade shows, and say to themselves, I'd love to have this. The problem is I don't have enough money to get these things. I'm not even going to start a dialogue with that manufacturer that provides that. So a lot of times at trade shows, I would be talking to businesses and I would say, look at the trade show floor, and you see people walking by your booth, and some of them actually stop in the middle of the aisle, look at what you have, take a couple seconds, and then walk on. And when talking to these businesses, I explained to them, those are your biggest problem. And they would say, why? I'd say, because in their mind, they're having a conversation with themselves about how they would be interested in what you have, but because they don't have any money, they don't even want to start talking to you. So that's when I came up with that formula of end users plus needs minus funding equal less conversations. End users aren't going to talk to businesses if they don't have the money. And the third thing I find businesses in this market have a problem with is they're selling to a market that doesn't know when they're going to have funding. And because they don't know when they're going to have funding, this creates material and supply chain issues on their end. So if you're a business and you want to keep product on hand so you can turn around orders much more quickly and efficiently, you know, that would require you to put capital out there. You have to buy the supplies, you have to build them, put them on the shelves. And when your marketplace is never sure when they're going to get the money because the budget's being tight and not understanding the grant game, then it's tough. It's tough to turn those orders around. And the longer it takes for an order to turn around, a lot of times that causes issues in the whole purchasing process, because some of these grants require the end user to have the materials in hand by a certain period of time. So we're going to talk about ways to solve all these problems and really get clear on what the value is to really understand where the grants are, how to apply for them, and how to play the game in general. So how can you achieve solving your grant problems? May it be a business wanting to sell more, may it be an end user wanting to have assets and training on hand so they can better serve their community. There's really 3 ways you can do that. 1, psychology, 2 is strategy, and 3 is mindset, a grant writing mindset. So let's talk about the big picture of psychology. So in working with public safety agencies on how to play the grant game, The number one thing I see that we have had to help them with is goal setting. So clearly defining the goals, breaking them down into SMART or specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound objectives. And so they can provide a framework for the effort. That's the first thing. You have to, if you're an agency, you have to sit down and say, okay, what do we need? When do we need it? Can we get it? What do we have to have in place to pursue to get it? And when do we want it? So you have to really sit down and strategize this. And more, I'm seeing agencies, and I'll touch on this at the end as well, creating funding teams. And the reason I call it funding is funding, end users don't care where the money comes from. It could be a grant. If it's law enforcement, it could be asset forfeiture funds. It could come from a budget, meaning they moved some money from one line item, put it on another line item. End users don't care where the money comes from. They just want to get the money as soon as they can. So creating a funding team that meets once a month minimum to really kind of figure out, okay, where can we get money is a huge, huge advantage, because now you're actually going out and finding the money. Your psychology is it's out there. We can get it. We can search for it. The second thing is planning and organization. Developing a well-structured plan and organizing your tasks and resources effectively. That's going to enhance your productivity and efficiency. So having a plan. Having a plan doesn't always mean you know how you're going to achieve the plan. Having the plan starts getting your mind looking for solutions to find that will help facilitate, create, and execute the plan. So planning out, all right, these are our targets. May it be equipment, may it be software, may it be training. All right, so we have these targets in place. Now, what do we need to do to get those targets? And how can we organize our resources to effectively make this happen? May it be someone's responsibility is to search the web for potential grant opportunities. Maybe someone's responsibility is to talk to the community and see if you could do fundraisers. Maybe it's, just talking amongst yourselves to say, okay, how do we sell leadership on this? How can we prepare to sell city council on this? Thinking about everything you're going to need to do to make sure you can create not just a funding program, but one that can continually go out and get you money. 3 is time management. Time management, let's face it, nobody in this room decided to do their job to be grant writers. Maybe I have a grant writer in the room. I don't know. I haven't looked at the attendance list yet. But most of you work in public safety or you're a business. And because of that, you have full plates. I mean, I talk to agencies every day and it's like, I don't know when I'm going to find the time to work on getting a grant. And I say, I get it. I know. I understand that. That is probably the number one thing I hear. And so what you have to do is figure out, okay, how can we break down our day to where maybe we have a chunk of time? And a chunk of time doesn't have to be an hour a day. It could be as little as 10 to 15 minutes a day. But you want to prioritize tasks, manage distractions. Maybe it's your lunch hour. Maybe you spend 15 minutes during your lunch hour while you're eating, making a phone call or doing some research or filling out an application. But you want to allocate that time appropriately to these different activities. One of the things that I tell agencies that, okay, your goal is to get X amount of money for this type of equipment. You get a team, get a couple people working on it, break it up. If you need to spend 15 minutes a day minimum working on getting a grant, if you have 3 different people doing it, you could split that into 5-10 minutes each. Think of it as a team game. I was on a call yesterday with an agency in California. And when I started the call, the corporal was going to work on this grant completely. When we were done with the call, we left the conversation where the commander said, you know what? I'll set aside some time to help Corporal. And I'll also assign someone else. So we'll have a team of 3 people working on this. And when you multiply that amount of effort into doing this, the odds go up, you're going to get your money. And there's times where you can leverage the business. You know, there might be certain things the business could do to help you out. Now, I'll tell you the do's and don'ts at the end, but there might be some things they could do in terms of providing you specific examples of how their solution saves time or saves money or reduces liability or saves lives. Maybe they can help you put a presentation together when you go in front of a city government and your elected officials. There's things they could do too to leverage and help out. This is a team game. It's a team effort. So what I want to do now is start talking about targets in terms of grants. And so I research the internet daily on grants. And I'm always looking at, okay, what grants are most popular? What grants are coming up and agencies are tapping into? The data on the internet, when I research it, unfortunately doesn't go as far back as I'd like. So I'm going to share with you what I found is in most popular. And then I'm going to share with you a little bit of what I'm seeing out there above and beyond this list. So as of the last time they tracked this was 9 of 2021, the federal government identified the Byrne grant or the Justice Assistance Grant or the JAG grant as the most popular grant in terms of being used. And the JAG grant, if you're not familiar with it, provides funding to state or local tribal governments, law enforcement, prosecution, court programs, crime prevention and education, community corrections. They have drug treatment programs and enforcement. Very, very comprehensive grant in terms of what you can do with it. And that's a good thing, and that could be a bad thing. And the reason I say it's a good thing is there's few things that you can't buy with a justice assistance grant. You can buy almost anything. The flip side, though, is because there's so many things you could buy with it, it's very competitive within your agency. So you literally have to have a lot of ducks in a row of things like why you need it, any certifications that it fulfills. So example, body armor expires every 5 years. If your body armor is old, you want to use Justice Assistance Grant to buy the body armor, you can leverage NIJ. Things like that. But that's been the most popular one we've seen for years. Then you have the Homeland Security Grant Program. It's a $1.2 billion program. Used to be $4 billion back after 9/11, but it's been pretty much at that $1 to $1.5 billion range now for a few years. Funding goes to state, local, tribal, territorial governments. It's all about preparedness, terrorism acts, other hazards. So it's geared toward prevention, response, recovery, or relief from acts of terror or any type of disaster. So it's a good grant. It's a lot of times what I see is the state will have a program where they'll get money from the feds, usually comes from FEMA, and they'll set up a priority list and open up the applications to the cities and counties. I see some other parts of the Homeland Security Grant Program specifically go to municipalities like UASI, Urban Area Security Initiative. That usually goes to the top 20 to 25 most populated areas in the country. Then you have Stone Garden, which falls under that. Operation Stone Garden is all about funding projects for border states, border of Canada, Mexico, or the oceans. So that one very popular too. Then we have the COPS grant. COPS grant offers various programs for community policing, hiring officers, implementing community policing strategies. There's some equipment purchase capabilities in it. enhancing your technology infrastructure. Very, very solid grant for law enforcement. Then on the fire side, you have AFG. AFG is probably the most structured and organized grant I see from the federal government. It's, over the last, it's pretty much kind of leveled out somewhere between $400 to $500 million. You can get funding for firefighting capabilities, EMS, fire prevention and safety. Really solid grant. They have a really nice training program. So if you're a fire department and you've never applied for AFG, definitely want to go through the program. You have a 1 in 5 chance of getting your grant approved. So it's about a 20% success rate. But very helpful for fire departments to apply for it. And then lastly, the Emergency Management Performance Grant. I find a lot of public safety agencies don't realize that their project would also fit into this grant. It's designed to assist public safety to enhance their emergency management capabilities and preparedness for all hazards. So you could have a fire project or a law enforcement project. As long as you can show capabilities for preparedness, you're good. When it comes to the Emergency Management Performance Grant, I'm going to flip back here, and the Homeland Security Grant Program, what I would recommend is leveraging something called the Authorized Equipment List, or AEL. So if you Google FEMA Authorized Equipment List, it will take you to FEMA's page where they have over 750 different types of products, and they connect those products to the grants in Homeland Security, as well as the grants in emergency management. So you can actually see before you even start working on federal funding, would this type of equipment qualify for certain grants? So definitely leverage that. If people need that site at the end, I'm happy to throw it up in the chat box. Now, I want to talk about funding sources everybody in this room should be focusing on right now, and I'm going to explain why. So the first one is ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. This funding will have to be spent by the end of 2024. It was a $350 billion. Half of it had to be spent by the end of 2022. So there's probably about 175 billion available still. It was a formula program that your municipality was able to get money based on population, stability of the home, and poverty levels. So the way this money worked, it was given to city government and county government. And it landed either in your city or county finance departments, or it landed in your emergency management agency. If you have one at the city level, it would have landed there. If you have one at the county level, it would have landed there. Now, this money, you don't have to apply for. This is a relationship type of opportunity. So what do I mean by relationship? This is about rapport. So if you have a project for your agency, and you're looking for funding, you can literally have a dialogue with your emergency management director, your finance director at your city or county level. And what you want to do before you have this conversation is make sure you understand what your project is, how big of a problem it is, how funding this project is going to solve the problem, and how you're going to save time or save money or reduce liability or save lives. Those are the 4 languages I like to say that grants speak. You want to have an implementation plan in place, and then you want to know how much money you're going to need. And when you call them up, you're going to want to explain to them those areas, and then ask them what has to happen for some of the American Rescue Plan Act funds to get moved over to our project. Here's what you're going to be told. You're going to be told 98% of the time that money's been allocated. And they think when they say that, then that solves the problem. You're going to go away and you're never going to come back. When they say it's allocated, it doesn't mean it's been spent. It means they've identified a project and they've earmarked money for it. With ARPA monies, especially 175 billion nationwide, there will be what's called gap money, GAP, I call it. And what gap money is money that's in between these projects, that's there as a cushion that they will use at the end, or there's cushion money in the project. So I was working with an agency in Tennessee last year, and they were looking for, I want to say it was probably just about around $20,000. And I had them call their county emergency management director and county finance director and ask about ARPA money. And they were told it was allocated. And they had $1 million allocated to a fire truck. So I explained to my contact at that agency, what I want you to do is touch base with them at least once a month. Be polite, be nice, be persistent, don't be pushy, but touch base with them just to, make sure you stay on their minds. What ended up happening was they bought the fire truck, and the fire truck cost $916,000. They were able to use some of that remaining $84,000 to fund their project, all because they kept in touch, all because they were polite, all because they had a sound, viable, and compelling project, because they laid it out in real good detail and easy to understand. And the director at the emergency management agency found it was viable enough to move that money. So you want to keep a dialogue going for potential ARPA funds, because those ARPA funds are going to be around between now and until the end of 2024. Second, community foundations, my favorite funding source for public safety, and probably one of the least tapped. I think maybe 2 to 5% of the public safety market actually leverage community foundations. So a community foundation, in very simple terms, what they do is they have a region. Typically, it's based off of a certain population. So your urban areas, it's going to be very dense. So like an example, San Diego has a community foundation, and it's San Diego County and all the cities in San Diego County. Whereas other foundations, I was just the one I was working on with an agency in Texas. They were in Galveston County. Their foundation was 9 counties. So the 9 counties around Galveston. And San Diego has about $900 million in their fund. Galveston has about $400 million in that 9 county fund. But again, less population than San Diego County. And so the way these foundations work is they raise money from businesses and individuals that live in those communities. And then they take that money and they invest it and they grow the fund. And based on the IRS and how they are classified, they have to give away 5% of their assets every year. So 5% of their assets, when you're talking about $900 million, it's $45 million. So every year they have to give away $45 million to municipalities in San Diego County and the county itself. Galveston being about 400 million, 5% of that is, I'm going to do my math here. It's $20 million. So $20 million for those 9 counties. So let's put that in perspective. For the fire agencies in this room today, AFG is about $440 million this year, and that's for the whole country. I'm talking about funding $50 million in 1 county, $20 million available in 9 counties. There's way more money in these foundations. If you add it up, I want to say there's about $50 billion in community foundation money in the country, which means they have to give away $2.5 billion every year. So how do you approach these foundations? Well, there's a couple different ways. Some of these foundations have a few different grant channels they've created. Some of them have a dozen or 2 dozen, depends on how big or small the foundation is. And when you call them, which we're going to talk about the importance of that in a little bit, You want to build a relationship with them, just like ARPA. You want to build a relationship with the foundation grant department, and they will either recommend you to apply for one of the funding channels they've set up, or if they like your project enough, they'll go out and raise money for you and write you a check. So think of these foundations as places you can go yearly. You want to build a long-term relationship with these people. And the better that relationship is, the better chance you're going to get money, because they're designed to help enhance, improve, or develop a community. So they're designed to fill those gaps. So you want to become friends with them and work with them as best you can. We worked on an opportunity in Monroe, Michigan last year. And after a 15-minute phone call and a application they sent the customer got $50,000 in about 2 weeks. Community foundations give out money quick as long as they believe the project is sound, viable, compelling, and well thought out. Next is manufacturing. Now, manufacturing, if you have a manufacturer in your community, it's a great place to go. They are considered a soft target, and they will fund projects to better help public safety operate, because they look at it this way. Their workers live in your community. They operate in your community. They want a write-off for tax purposes, and they want the goodwill to build that relationship. So every manufacturer has some level of a community involvement page. So you want to build relationships with these manufacturers. They'll either write you a check directly, or you can have them write the check to the foundation, that community foundation, and then they can fund the money to you. There's a couple ways you could do this. Public and private charities. Best well-known one is Gary Sinise Foundation, Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump. He gives money away every year to public safety agencies. I've seen him give anywhere in the 5 to 6 figure range for projects. So you want to build a relationship with them. They give out, I want to say they give out money either every other year or every year. It's changed over the last couple of years. So you would want to read their guidance page. But the Gary Sinise Foundation is a fabulous place that goes untapped. Public safety foundations. If anyone has a public safety foundation in this room, say yes. Put yes in the chat. Love to see who has one when it comes to those. If you don't, you want to look at starting one. It's a 501c3 that will go out and raise money and buy assets for your agency or write you a check. Leverage those types of foundations. And if you have a foundation, really build rapport, talk to them every month, communicate to them what's going on, what you need, why you need it. They're friends of the program, and they have the resources and the ability to go out and find funding. They can go talk to the community foundation. Sometimes the community foundation will donate money to them, or a manufacturer will donate money to them. But if you want to find out more about setting up a public safety foundation, contact me. I can get you in contact with experts that specialize in doing that. Lastly, service companies. So service companies, your utilities companies, electric, gas, water. If you have a railroad that goes through your community, those railroad companies. If you have a food service company like Firehouse Subs, which is probably since COVID, the fastest growing charity I see out there in terms of service charities. They give away $10 million a year. 100 agencies every 3 months get a grant somewhere between $15,000 and $35,000. They're a great organization to tap into, but these companies will donate money for public safety to enhance, improve, and develop your capabilities. Similar reasons to the manufacturers. People live in the community, they work in the community, they want the write-off, they want to build that goodwill. So you talk to your businesses, talk to those local businesses. If you have insurance companies like State Farm or Farmers, their corporate office donates monies to communities that have branches in there. If you have banks, bank branches, not loans, but actually grants, they will grant. The corporate level handles that. So build rapport with these local businesses you have because they want the write-off, they want the goodwill, and they want you to have everything you need so you can better protect them. We live in some uncertain times right now. There's a lot of unrest. That unrest, which we all would prefer didn't happen, can also benefit you if you have projects to help make that unrest a little more manageable. So you need to think that way. Leverage your community. Most of these agencies nowadays I talk to in the public safety arena, they think federal and they think state. Great places to go, and I'm not saying ignore them. Continually focus on federal funding and state funding, but add private funding to your bucket list of funding sources. And that's when building that team can go out and be more proactive in building relationships. So let's talk about the grant writing mindset. So when you're writing a grant, a lot of times I find agencies say, oh my God, I've never written a grant before. I don't know how to approach this. I'm not sure what to do. Approach it with a team effort. And really what you want to do is these following things. One, clarity of purpose. Clarity is power. Clarity to define your goals, your objectives, your purpose of your project. Explain why it's important, how it addresses a specific need or problem within the community. A clear and compelling vision is going to enhance your application. So you want to make sure it's clear and understood what you're looking to do, why you're looking to do it, and how you're going to implement that solution. Second is persuasive communication. Develop strong written and verbal communication skills to effectively convey your project's merits. One of the things I recommend you do is write your draft. When you write your draft, leverage things like Grammarly to make sure your grammar is in an active voice as opposed to a passive voice. You now have the option of AI. You can leverage AI not to write it for you, but you could write the genesis of it and ask AI, how can you optimize this? How can you improve this? How can you make it more persuasive? And AI could take what you write and modify it and give you ideas. Then what you do is you take what AI put together, reread it, and then tweak it based on making sure it's taking your voice, because your voice is so important when you write. But you have these tools to leverage. So develop these skills to effectively convey your merit. It's got to be a persuasive narrative that highlights the significance of the initiative, the impact, the benefits, and persuasively explaining how big of a problem you're having. Research and data analysis. This is probably one of the biggest hiccups I find when I talk to grant writers. Grant writers are at the mercy of an agency because you have to get them data. And so you want to make sure you know where your data is and making sure it's relevant, making sure the statistics are clear, the evidence demonstrates the need for the project and the potential effectiveness. It's got to be evidence-based because that's only going to make your credibility higher, and it's going to enhance your chances of funding. And your data with the manufacturer's information about how it's going to solve problems is that perfect fit. Stakeholder engagement. Engage with stakeholders likely to be impacted. Remember how I said, talk to businesses, talk to your community. You know, they're going to have an interest in your project if your project makes their life better. Collaborate with these members, local organizations, collaborate with government agencies. Maybe there's a project on the police side that the fire service would like to jump on because it would help them. Or maybe the fire service has a project that the police would like to jump on. Things like area scene lighting or deconning equipment, things like that can be cross-shared between fire and police because you both have those needs. You know, you want to build these relationships. You want to gain support from the community. You might want, you know, get endorsements from businesses or individuals or city council members or citizens or other parts of the public safety market in your community. But the bigger the involvement of the community only increases your application's capabilities of being accepted. So if you're looking to do a regional project, that's huge. Grantors love regional projects. They love when multiple agencies or multiple parts of one agency will be affected by the project. Grant writing skills. Develop strong grant writing skills to effectively convey your project's details, goals, and expected outcomes. Understand that specific requirements of that grant application and tailor your proposal accordingly. There's always a guidance to every grant. Read the guidance. In fact, have 3 people read that guidance and make sure everyone's on the same page of how to present the proposal. You want to articulate the project's budget, implementation plan, typically over about a year of how you're going to implement it, evaluation strategies, and sustainability measures. Grantors want to see, how are you going to measure it? How is it going to be sustained? How is it going to grow? Second, emotional intelligence. Understand and navigate the emotions and emotions of the individuals involved with the application process. So what does that mean? Well, if you're going to apply to a grant, talk to the grantor. Have a dialogue with the grantor. Make your project have a face and a voice of who's going to be providing it. It's one thing where I live in St. Charles, if I was the St. Charles Fire Department and I submitted a grant, it's one thing it comes in like that, but it's another thing if I'm Lieutenant Michael Asimor from the St. Charles Fire Department and I'm looking to get funding for this project because we have this problem. It brings it to life. You're going to develop empathy that way. You're using active listening skills when you have a dialogue with the grantor, and you're building rapport. And that's huge. Emotional intelligence can help you effectively communicate, address concerns, and build relationships. Grantors are the umpire of the game. If you're not sure what is a ball or a strike when they're calling balls and strikes, the best way to find out is have a conversation with them, and then you know how to play the game better. Lastly, resilience and persistence. Grant application process can be challenging and it's competitive. So you have to be resilient. You're going to get told no. You're going to run into roadblocks. You're going to run into challenges. The more persistent and learning from these challenges and setbacks or rejections will determine your success going forward. When you first started your job, I'm sure you all made mistakes. We all do. As you learned your job, you got better at them, and you stopped making some of those mistakes. Learn from the mistakes you make. Use feedback from the previous applications for future proposals. If you get declined, and especially with a private grant, you can call that grantor back and say, hey, I appreciate you looking at our proposal. I understand you declined it. That's okay. I'd love to get some feedback and tips on how we could do this better next time. They'll share it with you. They don't want to decline projects. Their job is to give away money that their organization has said this money has to be given away. They just want to make sure it's sound, viable, and compelling. They will give you advice on how to do that. Adapt and define your approach as needed, ensuring you remain committed to your public safety's project's goals. So I'd like to, before I open up to questions, I'd like to call y'all to action. I'm a believer that you don't leave an event like this without taking some action, because it's just going to turn into some good knowledge and it's going to fade away. And in essence, you end up doing nothing. And I want you to act. I want you to solve your own funding problems. As a business, I want you to really learn where money's at so you can help your customers. So decide to act. Know your outcome. What do you want to accomplish? Know your why, because the drive is always in the why. Any goal is 80% why and 20% how. The bigger the why, the stronger the outcome. And then take massive action. So what can you do to take massive action? Start a funding division or a funding team and master how to play the grant funding game. Build out strategies or invest in high quality grant information. So We sell grant information. You're more than welcome to contact us. Businesses hire us to be either a provider of grant details for their specific products, or we get hired to be an outsourced funding division for that company and help their customers maneuver through the grant process. We have agencies call us up to buy our grant content. But here's what you want to make sure you have. If you are looking for high quality grant information, what makes it high quality is it has to be specific to your city, county, region, or state. That's if you're an end user. If you're a business, that information has to be specific to your equipment, software, training, or service. Because if it's not any use to you. Also, hire a consultant, a strategist, or a coach who understands the public safety grant funding process. You know, I've had people leave these events and they end up being our customers. They hire us to do work with them, and we end up working with them. I've had others that said, you know what, we're looking to talk to someone else. We like what you said, but we're looking for this type of person. And I've referred people. The main thing is this: if you have the funding and the budget to hire someone to help you through this process, do it. If you don't, come back to my classes. I teach these classes every month, and I'm happy to share with you knowledge. If you ever have a question, email me. You're part of my family. I will answer questions. I answer questions every week from over 2,000 people have been through our courses. So I get emails every week from people asking questions. How do I do this? What's the best way to handle this? Some of them book meetings, and I have meetings on my Zoom account, and we talk about this face to face. There's a lot of ways to crack this nut, but leave here with a decision to take action. Then when you're taking action, notice the results you're getting. You can't manage what you don't measure. So you have to be clear. This is working. This is not working. And if it's not working, change your approach. Change your approach if necessary. Assess what's going on. You might have to work on new strategies. You might have to work on new beliefs. You might have hit a plateau, and then it's the time to get help. That's if you're not seeing the results on your own, that's when you bring in a coach or a strategist. We do this when we are in fitness. We'll hire a fitness coach. We do this sometimes in business. We hire a business coach or a life coach. Hire a grant coach if you need one. There's a few of us in the marketplace, and the bottom line is this: get better at this game. This game is designed for you to succeed. It really is. I know most of you didn't get into it to do this for a living, but I can tell you right now, if you learn where the money's at and you build relationships, you will have a revenue stream, and you don't have to rely on those budgets or rely on those yearly federal or state grants that sometimes take forever to get. Now, if you have questions, and I'm going to open up the questions now, but if you leave here and you have questions, take a screenshot of this page. My phone number's there. That's my mobile, 630-877-3130. Call me anytime you have a question. You can email me at masimor@dynamic-international.net. Our website's there. We have classes, we have blogs, we have weekly videos you can sign up for. Follow us on LinkedIn, me directly or my company on LinkedIn. We do a lot of content sharing on there, and all the other social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, soon to be Threads. And we have our YouTube channel where all our video content is. So with that in mind, what I'd like to do is stop sharing my screen and answer any questions you might have. Look over any questions in the chat. Now is a great time. If you have questions, feel free to ask them, and I'll be happy to share them with you. So let's see here. All right, so Brian, his agency has a public safety foundation. Great guy to talk to. You can find out, Brian, how does it work with you and your foundation? What do they have to do? How's the relationship? How do they work in helping you out? What type of rapport you have? You know, Dustin said, send me this information. Build those types of relationships so that way you have the ability to have someone to go back to more and more to get funding. Now, if we have any other questions in the room, happy to answer them. Again, you can use the chat if you want to raise your hand, hit the reaction icon, You can raise your hand. You'll go in the front of the classroom. I'll lower my hand. If you don't have questions, it's been great to have you here. This video will be available in a couple days. You can check it out on our website or on YouTube. But hopefully I left you with some good information. If you like what we shared today and you feel it's valuable for other people to hear about it, let us know. Write us a recommendation, write us a referral so we can train more agencies. So 2 questions. Perfect. Let me open this up here. This question comes from Sammy. Could you share the link to the FEMA? Yes, absolutely. Let me grab that here. Stand by. I'm going to go pull it up in Google. Go back to Zoom. That is the link to FEMA's authorized equipment list. And the 501(c)(3) information you mentioned starting for money raising. That would be, let me go back into the presentation here. I go back a few, oops, went the wrong way. So if you can start your own public safety foundation, that would be ideal. They would be a 501(c)(3). They can go out and raise money for you. Community foundations are a 501(c)(3). They can donate money to municipalities. I've seen them do that throughout the years. Manufacturers and service companies can donate to you directly. Sometimes it's easier for them to donate to the foundation. The public and private charities can donate to you directly, but these would be the funding sources you really should start digging into. And if you want, take a screen capture of this slide. I think I'm going to try to read the chats from here. Can you share I don't share slides, Mark, but I will make this video available to you. We'll let you know when the link's available on YouTube as well as our website. As a public safety agent, as a public agency, it has to answer to politicians of the public. How do you navigate the politics of seeking private funding versus federal and state? Is it possible to accept private funds without the appearance of aligning politically? Great question. So the best way to do that, Katie, that I've seen, and this is a moving target, so I'm not going to tell you this is a silver bullet that works all the time. What you want to do is when you talk to that grantor that is at that charity, or it is at that community foundation, or is at that manufacturer, or is at that service company, is explain what you're looking to do, why you're looking to do it, how it's going to save your organization and the community time, manpower, money, reduce liability, save lives, how you're going to implement it, and then from there, what it's going to cost. And then you ask them, is this something that you would consider funding? Looks, based on what I read, looks like we'd be a fit, but I want to confirm that. And then from there, your community has a certain strategy, we'll call it. So your chief should, or the director, depending on what type of agency you are, should have a good idea of what they typically have to do. So you want to make sure it's green lighted from your bosses at your agency and green light from the elected officials. You might have to present to them, and they might give you the final say if you could pursue it or not. You might only have to talk to your chief. Like yesterday, I talked to an agency in California that did not have to go in front of their elected officials. Their chief said it was good. It was good. I've had other agencies that said everything has to go in front of elected officials. So you just need to know how to play the game and make sure you connect all those dots and check all those boxes. And if the grantor says, no problem, we could fund a project like this, great. Then make sure your city government's good with it, or your agency director or chief's good with it, and follow those appropriate rules. And it's going to be case by case between municipalities. I wish I could give you a better answer, but I've learned over the years, it really depends on how your city government operates or county government, and also depends on your department operates, and it depends on the relationship between your department and the city government. I hope that helps. Any additional questions? I'll be happy to stay in the room for the next 5 minutes and answer any questions you have. You can either post in the chat, or you can raise your hand and unmute and we could talk about it. We have a relatively good sized room still. But if you're leaving, I appreciate your time. And if you felt this class was of value, let us know. Send us an email, send me an email talking about review of the class. If you think there's things you think we should cover more or cover in depth, let us know that too. This class is built and designed for you. And if there's things we could do better, we want to do it. And if not, I hope you enjoy your day. I hope you enjoy your weekend. Stay safe out there. And you can always reach out to us anytime you have questions. We're always here to help and serve you. Do I have specific guidance for AFG writing and administration? What I would recommend is really leverage the regional directors. There's usually regional directors that manage AFG in different parts of the country. They have classes that you can attend either online or in person. They are a wealth of knowledge and experience. Highly recommend leveraging them. The other thing I would do, Heidi, communicate within your fellow communities around where you're at. Ask them if they've applied for them and if they've had success in what they did, and model what they did. And then I would have someone review, if you're the writer of what you written, I have a couple eyes on it, and everyone looks at it and says, okay, what can we do differently or better? Have a team working together. Those are the things I find works the best. So with that being said, Heidi, feel free to email me if you have any further questions. I might be able to get you in contact with someone. So I'll put my emails here, and maybe we could do it that way too. But I'm going to be shutting the room down again. Thank you for attending. And we will have this video online in the coming days on our website and our YouTube channel. And we'll let you know. And thank you a lot, and have a great day and be safe.